Join me for the couch and the culture. Now, wait a minute. Make it make sense.
Hey, clients. What do you mean talk therapy feels like backdoor extortion?
I feel like I'm not a man if my girl get a therapist.
Who said that? Baby, go to therapy and do the work.
Parasocial.
The Barbs, the Beehive. I don't know these people personally. They don't know I exist.
Black people struggle with going to finding therapists.
It's a process.
Yeah.
It's like dating.
Let me introduce the couch and the culture, where therapy meets what's trending. Hey, clients. Welcome back to the couch and the culture, where therapy meets what's trending. I am your host, Lakia, and Happy New Year. Hope everyone's 2026 is off to a great start. And I'm just really excited for everyone to be joining me for another episode of The Couch and the Culture. So before I get into all of the topics for today, I think it's absolutely crucial that I start by acknowledging what's happening in the US right now. It would be completely tone deaf for me to talk about these things and not acknowledge this. Even with me saying Happy New Year, for some people, the start of 2026 is already off to such a heavy start. So I want to acknowledge what's happening, especially in Minneapolis and around the country with what we're seeing with ICE, the killing of American citizens by ICE agents this year. May what's happening with them, their legacy, not be in vain. So definitely want to start there. If you know me, you know I'm always going to say, social work is political. Therapy is political. We have a responsibility to make sure we are amplifying injustices. Today's episode is going to look a little different. Check out the description box below in case you need a reminder of the disclaimers. First topic that I want to cover today is the anniversary of Kobe and Gianna's passing. Also, the other members who were on board the flight with them, I don't want to overlook them. In honor of thinking about the timing of things, wanted to acknowledge probably one of my favorite clips from Kobe Bryant, and I think it's starting to recirculate again. So I want to listen to that again with you guys.
What I try to do is just try to be still and understand that things come and go, emotions come and go. The important thing is to accept them all, to embrace them all. And then you can choose to do with them what you want versus being controlled by emotion. You know, a lot of times I've seen players, even myself, when I was younger, being consumed by a particular fear. And to the point where you're saying, okay, it's not good to feel fear. I shouldn't be nervous in a situation like that. And it does nothing but grow. Versus stepping back and saying, I am nervous about the situation. Yeah, I am fearful about the situation. Well, what am I afraid of? And then you kind of unpack it. And then it gives you the ability to look at it for really what it is, which is nothing more than your imagination running its course,
I love what he's talking about. Being so in tune with your emotions and what you're feeling and recognizing that it's just that. It's just a thought. It's just a feeling. I don't necessarily need to try and push it down, suppress it. I can acknowledge it for what it is. Okay, I'm feeling nervous. Now what? I can try and decide, okay, what is it I'm actually nervous about? Am I worried about embarrassing myself? Am I worried about being judged? Am I worried about looking inferior, incompetent, right? I can acknowledge what it is that's underneath that emotion. And then I can try and say, okay, now how do I move forward with that thing? So I love this message from Kobe. And I thought it would be great timing to acknowledge that on today. So that's the first thing in sports. The W, big W gang, for the WNBA. They have still not reached an agreement, a collective bargaining agreement, but somehow there's so much promo about the schedules for the upcoming season.
All these girls are asking for one thing, and all they want from the family is to give them their freaking money.
That's really how I'm looking at the W. Like, the nerve of y'all to be popping out schedules like there is an agreement. The girlies may be unrivaled all season long, but, we'll check back in and say, looking for the updates related to that. The next thing that I wanted to get into when it comes to sports, former Ole Miss and now LSU head coach Lane Kiffin thought it was a great idea to post 2 hats in the colors purple and gold, no omega, make Baton Rouge great, and added real Donald Trump. Everybody was like, oh, it was Photoshopped. No, I caught the screenshot when he posted it on his story on Instagram and tagged that president again. And not only did you post that, because what do you mean make Baton Rouge great? The governor said they should be able to have a hand in who the incoming coach would be. Yeah, I don't know that we needed a more in-your-face way to know what type of program they were running down there in terms of MAGA in charge. However, to also post that on the same day that everything is happening with ICE, where we have someone literally being gunned down and the narrative being spun that he pulled out a 9mm and aimed it at the ICE agents, to post that on the same day, I mean, regardless of when you posted it, it was not going to be a good look. But to post that the same day, really, Lane, now I really see what Jumbo Fisher meant when he said, there Lane goes being himself again. There he goes being the asshole again. And I don't like to call someone out of their name that I don't know personally, but that really is true asshole. That really is you showing your true colors. And conveniently, the transfer portal for college football is currently closed. So it's not like any of those athletes who are there could then decide, you know what, let me exit stage left at this point. Now, that's not to say that the athletes who are there don't know the type of men that they're going to be playing for. But as a parent, I would struggle sending my black or brown child. And let's keep it a buck. In football, we know it's predominantly black men that are dominating the sport. I would struggle as a parent sending my black son to play for someone, and this is his mentality. Like, you already know it's given, line up, boy. That's really what it's given. And I would struggle. On the other side of that, I know, especially in the height of NIL, knowing how much money these athletes are getting to make in school, it's still going to be some black boy from the hood looking just to get out by any means necessary, who's looking at getting their NIL money, who's looking at hopefully trying to turn pro, as a lot of them want to, knowing that, oh, he's stacked his resume, he's won places. And regardless of this, they're still going to go and line up and play for this man. And listen, as a girly who went to a SEC school, I'm not going to pretend like I don't know the culture. Just want more coaches like Steve Kerr, in the sense of, I'm not stupid. I have my eye, not so far removed from what's happening on the day-to-day in these streets. And I'm not saying something that's so out of pocket, so tone deaf. I'm going to do two more kind of quick topics and then we'll move into the main thing. When this story broke, the text messages I got, so you going to cover this or no? Desmond and Christy divorcing. And my response each time I got a message about this was clear. I want to make sure if I'm covering this, I can do so in a way that's not parasocial. If you are following my channel, you heard it in my intro video, that's something I try and be really mindful of, not dehumanizing these people, not assuming that I know more about what's happening in their life than what they do, because quite frankly, we know what they show us. And so for all the people who were like, it's about time, he looked miserable, she was doing the most for a check, all of the people that had that to say, we don't really know the ins and outs. What we know is what they shared with us and what they wanted us to know. Even from the statements that were put out where he acknowledged his infidelity, where it started off by saying, I asked for a separation and when it wasn't granted, I made poor choices. Me paraphrasing, however he may have worded it. We don't know those people intimately. So before we throw our hat in the reins and become super parasocial, let's remember that they're humans. Let's also, I know because we meet people on social media or on reality shows, we feel like we know a huge part of who they are. But there's a level of privacy that they too are owed, and we should respect that. So if you were waiting on me to cover it, that's all you go hear me say it. Let's let these people move on in peace. They have kids in the middle of this who are going to have access to the internet to be able to see all of the commentary about this. Let's just leave it there. And to Kevin Gates, I see you, sir. Moving on. Next big topic that I wanted to get into has a lot to do with Kai Cenat. Remember, before he even cut his hair, there was a clip of him where he was talking about like having anxiety.
Listen though, right on the Bible, I have started reading again. But listen, chat, y'all want to know why I have trouble speaking, especially in environments like this, gang. Like, I don't know what it is, bro. But if it's something important where I have to present something, it's just like school, my nigga. It's like I want to rush out what I want to say, but at the same time, my heart beats. What is that called? When your heart beat and like you a little nervous, like, bro, I be like, even though I was in Paris in front of so much people, like, gang, like I started panicking, yeah, anxiety, bro. That shit be frying. Yo, chat, that shit be kicking my ass, bro. Chat, I get anxiety before streams. I get anxiety while I'm about to go on stage or about to get somewhere. Like, that shit be crazy, bro. Like, how do you fix that? And I think I got, chat, look, I'm already fucked up. I got ADHD. Okay? Nigga, I got anxiety.
So what I really want us to take away from that clip, first off, how he described his body. A lot of times, if we're not really sure how to put words to it and we're not sure if we've experienced something, where we hold it or feel it in a body is a good way to have us communicate with someone about what it is we're feeling. So him saying, I feel like my heartbeat gets really fast. Him saying like his thoughts feel like they're racing or they're coming so fast, right? That can be a helpful way to describe to someone to help them understand the language behind what I'm feeling. I may not have the words to describe it emotionally, though that type of vocabulary, but in my body, I can tell you, hey, I notice my leg starts shaking really fast. My hands get really clammy. I have tunnel vision. I can't necessarily think straight. I have knots in my stomach. My heartbeat picks up. It gets to racing really fast. I feel panic. Like this is almost like a do or die type of situation. Those are all helpful things to be tracking if we think we may have anxiety. And then him saying like, before I would have to public speak, before I would stream, he talked about even like in school, I think about someone who maybe like having to read in public. I don't think they do popcorn reading in school anymore for this reason. But those types of things, right, where right before I perform, I get super anxious. So maybe we're looking at a specific performance-based anxiety or thinking about like a social anxiety when I'm concerned with how others may perceive me. So whether it's with public speaking, whether it's before I walk into a room of people I don't know, I'm concerned about the opinions they're going to have. I like that he openly shared about this because, again, thinking about other young Black boys who may be feeling these same things or experiencing these same things and they don't really know how to put words to it. I appreciate that he shared about it. The other thing that he said when he said, I'm already fucked, I got ADHD, I got the anxiety. I want us to reframe how we're talking about these types of things, not seeing having these things as like, I'm less than, I'm weird, I'm different, I'm not good enough, not seeing it that way, but knowing, okay, yes, I have these things. And so maybe I have to approach things a little bit differently. Maybe I have to be more careful, slow down, spend more time. And I'm still qualified. I'm still able, making sure we're not getting into this kind of ableist language when we're talking about these things. Thinking about the big topic for today, I wanted us to talk about this apology that Kanye West issued today. And before anyone's like, oh my God, why are you giving this any attention? I don't buy it for 1 second. I don't think it's genuine. Do you remember when Kim came out? Do you remember all them times he said this was his superpower? If that is your belief, we probably are not going to be aligned as I talk about this, but he started his apology talking about the car accident. So if you all met Kanye in the way that I first came to know about him, it was through The Wire, where he was rapping literally with his jaw wired shut. Okay. We knew at that point it was as a result of a car accident. But one of the things he talked about in the apology, that there was very little neurological workup after that car crash. And we did not actually know that there was a frontal lobe injury that happened during that time, according to what he's saying. He then moves on to talk about the medical oversight caused serious damage to his mental health and to his bipolar type 1 diagnosis. I think this was the first time I heard or can really acknowledge him saying the type of bipolar disorder he's been diagnosed with and that he genuinely does have it. He talked about it comes with its own defense system, denial. When you're manic, you don't think you're sick. You think everyone is overreacting. You feel like you feel like you're seeing the world more clearly than ever, when in reality, you're losing your grip entirely. So I thought this would be a good teachable moment to talk about the differences in bipolar disorder. A lot of times when people be like, oh my gosh, the weather keeps going back and forth, it's so bipolar. Or, oh my gosh, she's PMSing, she's having mood swings. One minute we the best of friends, and the next she got an attitude, she's so bipolar. Simply having mood swings, that is not bipolar. If we are looking at a bipolar diagnosis, right, even just taking that word, the root words of that, bi meaning two, and polar comes from polis, thinking about two axes being on like opposite ends of an axis, right? So with a bipolar diagnosis, there's a very clear distinction between having bipolar disorder type 1, bipolar disorder type 2. Kanye is talking about being diagnosed with type 1. So in type 1 bipolar disorder, you have the lows or kind of depressive episodes, and you have the manic episodes. The manic episodes have to be most of the day, nearly every day, for at least 1 week. I'm going to say that again. Most of the day, nearly every day, for at least 1 week. Okay. So with type 1, we also want to think about the acronym of a manic episode that's called dig fast. And I'll put it on the screen, right? So you would typically see distractibility. You would see some level of impulsivity. So there's this reckless spending. There may be these risky sexual behaviors, right? I am really impulsively just doing stuff. Grandiosity, right? I'm on top of the world. Nobody's better than me. I have this inflated sense of self. The flight of ideas, activity increase, sleep decreases, right? So I can stay up for days on end and I still feel rested. I don't need to sleep. If I sleep, I'm gonna miss out on things, right? And then talkativeness. So these are the things that we would see in a manic episode. And typically with the manic episode, a lot of times there are significant consequences where it's causing challenges in my professional life and my personal life. My relationships are possibly being jeopardized when I'm at the height of a manic episode. This is where I've probably got the greatest chance to be hospitalized. I'm losing my grasp on reality, which is one of the things Kanye mentioned in his statement. For some people, they also hallucinate. So it kind of has that psychotic feature. That is going to be key in type 1 bipolar disorder, right? You have the depressive episode, and then you have at least 1 week, nearly every day for most of the day, of this manic episode with the symptoms I just talked about. Whereas type 2 bipolar disorder, you're still going to have the lows that you would find in a depressive episode, then go into a hypomanic episode, right? So not developing into full-blown mania, but when we're thinking about a kind of less severe form of that, and typically does not last more than 4 days. So with this, it's not likely that you're going to be hospitalized. You're not having the psychotic component of it where you're hallucinating or having these delusions or this break from reality. Typically, if we're in a hypomanic episode, for some people, it actually may feel like, okay, I just have this expansive mood. I'm just really happy. Everything's great. Everything's unicorns and rainbows. And while we're here, can we just talk about the amount of times that bipolar disorder is misdiagnosed in Black people? So, although you're probably like, Kia, I am not here trying to, review the DSM. I think it's super important, especially for our loved ones. If you have people that you care about, to know that these are the things to look out for, to be able to keep account of what's happening, super important. Getting back to his apology, he talked about how persuasive it is. It tells you that you don't need help. It makes you blind. It's convinced you that you have this insight. You feel like you're seeing the world more clearly than ever. He talked about losing touch with reality. He talked about gravitating towards like use of swastikas and selling the t-shirts with it, all of those things. He talked about I'm not a Nazi or an anti-Semite. I love Jewish people. He talked about the Black community through all of it. It is the foundation of who he is, and he's sorry that he let us down. He didn't just harm himself. He inflicted pain on these communities and invoked trauma on so many people that he loved. The responsibility is mine. If you follow me on TikTok, you saw this video I made about the 5 R's of an apology. Part of that includes taking responsibility for the hurt that you caused, for your actions. He talked about starting treatment, taking medication, going to therapy, exercising, living this clean life. But then he talked about sometimes being told by some of the experts in the field that he's not bipolar, he's experiencing symptoms of autism, which when I read that, I was like, that's interesting. Because when we think about autism spectrum disorder, and it is a spectrum, I know not everyone has all of the same characteristics. But when we're thinking about autism spectrum disorder, there are 3 main key areas that we're thinking about when we're saying that likely someone may be on the spectrum. Right? There's challenges in social communication and interaction. So they may struggle with having a reciprocal conversation or a back and forth, right? They may struggle making eye contact. They may struggle to understand social cues. They may not necessarily understand like why someone's crying about a situation. They're struggling to understand emotions. Can make it really difficult socially to develop. With younger children, you see that they struggle with like reciprocal playing, right? Where it's like, no, everything's mine. I don't want to share beyond what you would expect for their age group. So social communication and interaction deficits are likely going to be there. Thinking about restricted and repetitive behaviors. So we think about repetitive movements such as stemming, right? When we talk about my vocal stems, right? It's something that you're doing to kind of self-soothe that's repetitive. There's going to be this insistence on a strict routine. They're really rigid, right? Like I have to have the same meal at the same time, at the same location every day in order for this to happen. There's a restricted area of interest. So I'm only interested in planets. I'm only interested in cars. I'm only interested in whales. Shout out to attorney Woo Young Woo and my mom who put me onto that show. But right, you have this restricted area of interest that you see with someone who's going to have autism. And then the sensory differences, right? So maybe being overstimulated or hypersensitive to certain sounds, to certain textures, right? Maybe if my clothing is itchy or has tags on it, that's going to be difficult. If a loud alarm goes off and we're in public, it's going to sound like my ears are literally being pierced, right? So the sensory things. So hearing, the social communication and interaction deficits, the restricted of repetitive behavior or the sensory deficits sounds in black and white, very different from a bipolar 1 disorder. I think it's interesting when we're thinking about, could there be some overlap between autism and bipolar disorder? What is it that he actually has, regardless of his diagnosis, because none of us are his medical doctors. I appreciate him having the awareness to say this is what's happening. I think it was upsetting to see some people like, oh, this just means he has a new project that's just about to drop. He's just trying to get, the core of his original fan base back. He ain't never gonna change. This is all PR, blah, 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 blah. Imagine if people did that with us and the things that we may have done in our past. Would we want someone so convinced that we were incapable of change? Now, I'm not saying we have to be naive. I'm not saying that we need to buy everything he's selling us. I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, if he is at a place where he has really gotten the help, he has really locked in with the right medication regimen, the right provider and therapy, keeping his mental together with exercise, being active, all of those things. If he's really got that under control and he now has the insight, he's coming out of that fog to see the ways in which he has caused harm. If he genuinely is there, I would hope everyone's able to not forget what he's done, but have some grace and take that with a grain of salt and not just completely write him off, if that really is what's happened. I can't tell you, as I was reading this apology, how much I was like, oh. Quite frankly, this is the reason I popped this camera up here today, because I was actually going to wait a little bit longer in the context of the snowstorm. I'm like, well, everybody's at home anyway. I should probably be posting. But on the other hand, I didn't want this to feel rushed coming back. But when I was reading through his apology, I was like, so many thoughts, so much to say. So I wanted to make sure we covered it. So one of the things he said, I have newfound and much needed clarity. I'm pouring my energy into positive, meaningful art, music, clothing, design, and other new ideas that help the world. So we know he's coming back with something. He's not denying that. I'm not asking for sympathy or free pass, though I aspire to earn your forgiveness. I write today simply to ask for your patience and understanding as I find my way home. And I think we can give that. We can give understanding and patience while he's trying to figure these things out. And with patience comes time. With time, we can really look at character and patterns of behavior, and we'll know if this was just all PR or if he genuinely is working on trying to get better. So I realized that I have talked about the importance of timing multiple times in this video. I'm also going to take this time out to encourage you to follow me on all of these social media platforms if you haven't done so already. But in thinking about this situation with Kanye, I realized I talked about timing with Lane Kiffin, and I haven't mentioned the timing of Kanye posting this video, or this apology rather. Some people may say, this wasn't the right time. Look at all that's happening in the world. And I get that. It feels like the world has been in shambles. So I really don't know when the right time to post this apology would be. However, in thinking about, what was the difference with the Lane Kiffin thing and with what Kanye did? And I'll say this. Lane Kiffin used that opportunity to shout out an oppressor, whereas Kanye is using this time, hopefully as a means of taking accountability and trying to have a fresh start. So I did not want to overlook the timing of it. Some people may take issue with it, considering the context of what's happening in the nation right now, or the concern that the timing is just before he's about to drop something, which again, he acknowledges at the end of the apology that there's going to be something coming at some point. We don't know exactly when, but we know he would like to be able to get back to his creative bag. Nonetheless, I wanted to acknowledge that I didn't want people to think that I overlooked the importance of the timing of it all. That's going to cover us for the main segment. I hope you learned something. If nothing more, the differences between bipolar type 1, bipolar type 2, what some of the key characteristics of autism disorder are. My God, I know my mic picked up my growl. I always like to close things out with some type of music recommendation. Your girl is a music buff, sports buff. So all of those things are going to be included here on the couch and the culture. Thinking about the soundtrack for today, let me make sure I'm getting the correct name of this album. The Campolation by Camper. If you've heard the tagline, welcome to the camp, whether it was on ICU or what have you, you already know it was about to be a good time. He put out an 11-song body of work that features Lucky Day, Ari Lennox and Jeremiah, Jill Scott and Ty Dolla $ign, Sid and Tank, Stevie Wonder, Juan Moore, Alex Isley and Rose Gold, Tone Stith, Terrence Martin and Aaron Ray, Brandy and Victoria Monet. Just hearing the names, give it 35 minutes for these 11 songs, and it goes by so fast, and I was so into it. So yeah, that's my soundtrack for the week, The Campolation by Camper. If you're not familiar, don't say I ain't never do nothing for you now. All right. And that's going to take us to the end of the show. I hope that you are sharing this with your friends and you're getting something out of it. Thank you for joining back on The Couch and the Culture. Until next time, bye-bye, clients.